those earbuds in means nobody can talk to me. People think I'm listening to something.
You're antisocial.
I'm antisocial on a plane, so I can do this. I don't go on the internet. I don't surf. I don't do work. I do this when I'm on a plane. So I'm about like 4 or 5 chapters into this book, and right from the plane, I shot Victor a picture. I said, "We got to talk about this book."
You did.
Here's my stance on this book. It took me a while to get to it, but I've been reading consuming crazy amounts of sales content for 40 years of my life, right? It's all I do. But what I found about this book is it challenged me. Like, I love stuff that makes me think different, like and put a different spin on it. And he does this. This kind of flips your mind a little bit on maybe we're not doing everything the old way, right? The old 40 years of doing how I do it. It challenges you and it makes you think, but when you peel it all back down, that's why I said, Victor, we got to talk about this book.
There's something I admire about you, Ed.
What's that? Oh, this is going to be scary. He's smiling at me when he says that, so this is going to be a bunch of BS.
No. It's like, see, there you went down the rabbit hole. What I was going to say, what I admire about you is that, you still read.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? You still consume content. Yeah. And I think, when I don't know what the number is, but I know when I talk to people, and I'm always like, what do you read? Obviously, the older they get, they stop reading, and they stop learning, and they stop adapting and changing. So I just want to say I admire that in you.
Well, I appreciate it. And it's been, there was a period of time, like 10 years ago, I started reading again.
Okay.
I grew up reading, and my kids are great readers, and my wife's great reader, so I had lots of examples in front of me. But I like to read on a plane. It's really the only time I read. I may crack a book when I'm hanging out with my wife when she's sitting on the beach and that kind of thing, and I'll crack a book and read with her. But
I was in Missouri, as you know, last week, and I had a Gen Zer ask me, like, when we took a break from the training, he said, "Do you still recommend reading?" And my brain just locked up.
Yeah.
Because I go, "Are you messing with me or are you serious?" And he was dead serious.
Yeah.
I go, "What do you mean do I recommend reading?" Of course I recommend reading. He says, "Why wouldn't you read?" He goes, No, I haven't read a book in a while. I use videos or podcasts, which there's nothing wrong. Yeah. I think there's something different when you read a book. And by the way, I've tried reading books on my Kindle versus the organic way. I can't get away from the organic way.
I had the same conversation with Cam Glover yesterday. He said, you read? I said, yeah, I read like crazy. He said, well, I use my Kindle. I said, I can't. The paperweights and all that, I can't do that either.
I can't.
That's what my wife does.
It's convenient.
Yeah.
By the way, if I was reading fiction, which I don't read, I would probably use a Kindle. Yeah. But the problem with these, when I read these books, is I'm always marking up.
Yep.
I got a pen with me, and I'm just marking stuff off. Question mark, don't believe that. Underline, circle that. Yeah. My books are a mess when I'm done with them. Yeah.
Same here. Let's talk about. Anthony has like 9 pillars of this whole concept of being one up and creating value and really becoming that consultative seller, right? We talk about being a consultative seller, but are we really? Talk a little bit about that.
Okay. Let me tee that up.
Yeah.
So consultative selling is a book written by Mac Hannon, which came out in, we got to look that up. It's I'll just say late 70s, maybe early 80s. So in that book, Mac Hannon talks about how to be on the buyer side. In other words, how to get on the same side as the buyer, and then you're there to consult them. And quick note, Anthony Iannarino was the last one to interview Mac Hannon before he passed away. Just a footnote in history of sales. And so this book kind of takes off from there. And the one-up thing is, we'll start with the first part, which is like one of the pillars I like is information asymmetry. Now, if you've ever tried to buy life insurance, which I have, and if you've ever been confused, which I have, when I got lost very quickly, which I did because I couldn't understand it. In other words, if height represents what you know, the salesperson was up here and my knowledge of insurance was here. And this gap right here is called information asymmetry. And when that asymmetry exists, people are confused. So they go, you know what, I'm not going to buy because I don't understand. I don't trust myself to make a decision. So what the best of the best do is simplify the information and then educate and then close that asymmetry gap. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and I think in Anthony's book, I mean, one of the things he talks about when you have that, because that should be going on, you should know more than the person you're talking to in your business, right? Yep. You should be educated and locked and loaded, knowing all the ins and outs of everything that we do. But when you have that kind of knowledge, Anthony says one of the first things you got to be very careful of is coming across as too arrogant, right? You don't want to come back as dominating and just talking down to them, because if you get that, they'll never come up to your level. And I guess when you think about that, so you got to find that happy mix to bring them up, drop you down a little bit, so you're not giving up a lot of your power position, right?
You should simplify a little bit.
Yeah. But I think using the Cardone line, eye level is buy level, that's the goal. is to bring them to you.
Yep.
So you're looking right, talk
Yeah.
a bit
By the
about
way,
that.
and that's a good line to emphasize because that's where I first heard it. So again, I don't know if it's Grant's line, but he talked about if the buyer's up here or you're the seller and you're up here and I'm down here as far as knowledge level. Eye level is buy level, which means once we're eye to eye, once I understand more, you simplified it, and eye level is buy level, we're more likely to buy.
Amen. And I think sometimes commercial, this really fits for our B2B folks.
Okay.
We covered a little bit of this book for residential folks, but this is in your sweet spot. I think one of the other things that he talks about taking your one up and maybe going one down is during the discovery, to where you're trying to uncover what's going on with them. You don't want to come across as the expert. And you don't want to say, well, I already heard that before, I already seen it. You want to let them share, right?
Because sometimes we know too much, Ed.
Yeah.
And it's like we hear the question, and already our brain is racing ahead to give the answer. And you brought up something. You said, let them get it out there.
Yeah.
Hit on that one. I thought the way you said it was great.
So I think sometimes we get so anxious to jump with our response, right? That better listener, not wait for your turn to talk. But even just think about something as simple as the customer says to you, they've had the same technician. No, they've had a different technician for the past 4 or 5 visits, right? The turnover is killing me. That's one of their pain points, right?
Right.
You could immediately have in your hip pocket that the guy or gal that's going to service this location for Orkin has been there for 25 years.
Right.
You don't want to spend that yet. You don't want to spit that yet. But we have that hesitation or that anxiousness to say, oh man, we can fix this for you. Wait,
let me get in.
Let them finish because you might only have in your discovery, that might be only the one thing that you found. You got to find 2 or 3 things because if you have to understand that in this game, commercial, you're in the business of replacing. One thing might not be enough to swing them over to us when we're going to ask for more money. Talk a little bit more about that.
I love what you said because I'm not trying to divide people here, but it's like when you're a younger salesperson, you're anxious to show what you know. Right? There's an impatience that happens. As you get older, you're kind of just more patient. It's almost like you wait in the weeds, right, in the bush, because they're giving you content. They're telling you exactly. If you listen enough, long enough, they tell you how to sell them. And too often we want to jump in there. And so it reminds me, if I can share the story, you ever play Double Dutch?
Yeah.
Okay. See, the visual's horrible right now. But
not me and you playing Double Dutch, that would be horrible.
It would be. So you know how it's almost like this. They do this, right?
Yeah.
And then what happens is you're just waiting to jump in.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel that salespeople do that in a conversation.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, I'm just waiting for you to talk. I'm not listening. I'm just waiting for you to talk so I can jump in.
Amen.
And when the customer feels that, you can just feel this separation, like you're not listening to me.
Yeah, and I think you shortstop yourself if you don't dig deeper, right? So, and people love to talk about their business, love to talk about themselves. So maybe take some of that one-up stance. You want to be in strong as a commercial seller and back it down during discovery. I think that makes sense.
Can I add something? And this is something I think you brought up a while back, and I thought was a good point, that we talked about that the longer you take, when you're going through let's say, I'm talking about, this is commercial, we're talking about home inspection, can apply the same thing, right? That the longer you take, there was almost like a correlation, a positive correlation, right? It was the longer I take, the more likely I am to close. Because I see the same thing here because I'm listening, I'm not jumping in, I'm not cutting you off, I'm keeping the flow going.
Yeah, my advice on a commercial inspection is you got to spend at least twice as much time as their current technician is spending doing the service. Because that'll trigger them like, oh my God, Victor, that dude spent more time looking around than the guy that's doing our service now.
You still here?
Did it?
You still here?
I mean, think about that. And getting on the roofs and just blowing them away with that piece, right? And all of our starts can tell you that.
And I think that, and I know we're going off track a little bit, but that's a big differentiator in the market today. When everybody's product and service looks the same, that extra time becomes a differentiator.
Amen.
Okay.
One of the other pillars, I guess, for lack of a better word, I think he does call them pillars, is this unique vantage point and speaking to customers from a unique vantage point, telling them something that they don't know. Again, that insight and all those kind of pieces. And when I think about that, I think about approaching customers ahead of season. Flyers are going to be going crazy in most parts of the country pretty soon. Calling and talking about that. Telling them, let's get ahead of that now. Let's do this now. Giving them something different than that they're not getting today. Speaking to it from there with that knowledge that you've gathered.
I'm thinking because you said something, it's interesting. There's insight, right? We've talked about insight, information beyond the obvious. Tell me something I don't know. But the way you just phrase that, you're saying, but also get them to think. It's almost like future casting, right?
Yep.
Say, hey, this is what's coming. And it's kind of a piece of insight. I never looked at it that way till you just said it.
For sure.
That maybe it's a piece of insight that you're saying, have you thought about this? And you go, no. So, It's only 3 months away. Maybe it's top of mind that you bring it to top of mind. So insight, I didn't know that. You position yourself as one up. But maybe as you're forecasting out what might happen, brings it top of mind is also a way of maybe attaining that one-up strategy.
And I always use seasonal type things that happen commercially, right? So, a couple months from now, get ahead of the rodent stuff.
Right.
I want to come on and get ahead of that rodent stuff for you. I think one of the other pillars is this advice and to compel change, right?
Right.
Want to give advice to compel change. The one that I always try to spin and plant in there is, the fact that everybody has an iPhone, everybody's a studio, and everybody has social media.
Right.
Don't end up like Chipotle did with that mouse running around that store in Dallas, Texas. The folks literally got us half of the Chipotle restaurants. That trigger went all the way up the food chain. The reason today that we service Greyhound buses was 10 years ago. They had a video that went viral of the roaches coming out of the, where you put the luggage up there.
Yeah.
That's what triggered Greyhound to call us. And now we have done all of their buses for the last 10 years.
Amazing.
And that's what triggered it. So always trying to plant that seed that, I know they've been, they failed you a couple times.
Yeah.
But Bubba, you can't afford to do this again.
Right.
To compel that change and come from that position with the story like that says, been down this road, man. You don't want to go viral.
No.
You can't give them another chance.
Yeah,
It's
and by
time
the way-
to stop it.
and-
Again,
and-
coming from that one-up position.
Yeah.
You've seen it.
I was going to say, and the corollary to that is you don't want to go viral with the video, but you also don't want the negative reviews.
Absolutely.
Like I said, Ed, I think more and more people, especially me, I'm looking at reviews now.
100%.
Even when I book hotels now, I go to the reviews. I never used to do that, but I guess I'm losing faith. I think there was a time we could just assume that if it's a Marriott, for example,
Exactly.
it's a Marriott.
Yep.
If it's a Courtyard, it's good.
Yeah.
I don't trust that anymore, so I find myself now leaning towards reviews. Do you do the same, or is it just me?
100%. And even more important than that, if Cam Glover, our VP of Marketing, did a presentation for the Big Cheeses this week, and he talked. If your Google reviews in your branch aren't 4s, they're not going to. The phone's not going to ring. They're not going to use us. They're not going to call us. They're not going to reach out. And that maybe has a bigger play residentially, but it certainly impacts what you do. So check out your Google reviews in your branch, and if they're not good, seed the deck a little bit, post a review, get something going on.
Yeah.
I have 3 services that I get at the 3 different properties that I've got some ownership in, right? And every time my Orkin Pro goes there, I post a killer review, right? And nobody can tell who I am. It's like Ed Donahue, right? Maybe they know who I am, but every time that he comes, I post that review so that we keep those scores up, we keep that phone ring, and keep people coming to us.
By
What
the
else?
way, I'd like to hear from you guys. Do you guys look at Google reviews more?
Yeah,
Just put a yes or a no. Just yes. I mean, do you find yourself looking at them more? Is it me or just my paranoia?
Amen. One other one I think that is vitally important to us, particularly as the commercial sellers, is this pillar of helping clients change.
Yeah.
And I take a lens on that I think too often times we wait for the customer to say yes before we discuss a transition plan. And I think that's such a mistake. I mean, you could go out and you could give the best proposal, the best inspection, the best graph, offer the best solution, and lay it out and give it some nice pricing, right? Share all that. But if you don't talk transition plan until they say yes, I think you're cheating yourself out of business because I promise you, I've thought through this hundreds of times, and as a salesperson, I think these customers want to know.
Right.
So you've done all these great proposals. You've done everything perfect, right? You've done just as we teach it, right? You've done everything perfect. But if you don't talk to the transition plan, you walk out the door, the first thing they're going to be thinking is, oh man, this is going to be a pain in the ass to change.
Yeah.
I didn't think about this. I didn't think about this. How am I going to do this? Man, I really like that guy or that gal. Makes sense. I love what Orkin's doing. I love their price. Every one of you has a proposal out there that the customer has been nodding their head saying, I love it, I love it, I love it, I love it. And they don't ever buy a damn thing, right? They don't buy anything. They just go radio silent or whatever. But I think sometimes we have to be better. And I would try to convince all of you to talk transition plan before you offer price. And just tell them, look, a lot of my customers think that making this transition can somewhat present some challenges and some difficulties. I use the triple guarantee at the same time, but I think it's very important that you walk them through what's going to happen.
Yeah.
We've converted so many customers over to Orkin. Let me tell you how easy we're going to make this for you. I'm going to hold your hand. We're going to do this, 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 and this, so that you plan it, you deal with it, because I think oftentimes that's the objection that never gets surfaced out there. So talk transition before you serve price, so that you finish with your price and you go out of there. Again, they've been nodding their head, they don't buy a damn thing because you didn't make it comfortable, because they'll think about it.
Yeah.
And maybe they'll go to their boss. I want to change customers. Well, what are we going? What's involved in that?
Yeah.
Oh wait, the Orkin dude told me that, right?
Right.
Here's what they do. They do this all the time. They have a comfort level. Make sense to you?
I love that. Yeah. Again, we talked about this. That I never thought about putting the how it's going to work.
Yeah.
The transition, the friction, the change. In the actual body of the presentation. To you brought it up.
Yeah.
Because I just never thought about it. And what you're doing also, Ed, is like you're blocking an objection.
Yeah.
In a very indirect way, because you're saying here's how it's going to work. Like let's say halfway through your presentation. Yeah. And so as you say, if you don't do that, when you leave, other priorities kick in. But then I think the worst part is when they start thinking about how the transition is going to work, they start, in the absence of information, we make things up. We've all heard that. But I think we also amplify. For example, I'm thinking, okay, I hear what Ed was saying, but okay, that means this. And man, working with a contract and just trying to put, well, that's going to be a bear. I'm not doing that. Yeah. And last time we tried to do something and all of a sudden that monster grows in their head, which is why they say, you know what, let's not change, let's stay the same. So I love that you block that objection of how the transition is going to work in the body of the presentation.
And they get paralyzed, right?
Yeah.
And I think
totally
so. It does a couple of things, right? It certainly takes you down that assumptive close, right? Not to be salesy, right? Not to use that term. But you're making the assumption that you're talking to them, we're going to do business.
I wouldn't say I think you're educating them. Here's how it's going to work, right? And obviously, I guess they're underlying, somewhere in there's embedded here's how it's going to work when we work together.
Right.
But I think if you just approach it from, I'm just trying to educate you to kind of reduce that anxiety we always talk about.
Because I truly believe it's the objection that they really won't voice until you leave.
Yeah.
If you don't serve it up.
Those are the ones that always kill you.
So put it out there and deal with it right up front.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know that we've got much more to talk about. We've covered some time on that. But again, by
the way, Robbie says setting the proper expectation is key.
Yeah.
And that's kind of laid in there. It's layered in that statement that, you're setting the expectation of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So that's another way of saying, well done.
Again,
by the way, a lot of people do actually somebody says, as far as Google's review, somebody says, not more, always as always.
Yeah.
Like, I just really started doing that. So yeah, interesting.
Amen. Highly recommend the book.
Yes.
Highly recommend the book. And you won't hear me saying that much. I mean, I can.
Anthony's always a good ROI.
Yeah.
He's always a good ROI. Yeah. So invest.
And just read it and have some patience with it and understand it. I'm challenging it as I'm reading it. And that's what I love about it.
Yeah.
When you read stuff like that, it's I can flip through a lot of sales books with all these authors out there and I already knew that. I already knew that. I already knew that.
Yeah, knew that.
Same old story. Same old story.
That's what he does differently.
This will shake you up.
Yeah.
This will shake you up. It'll put a new spin on it. So with that, Victor, let's get out of here. I got some housekeeping.